Question number 2. The concepts tested in this question is that of the calculation of the empirical formula and the molecular formula. Now in this question it says that a chloride of silicon contains 79.1% by mass of chlorine. Now a chloride of silicon contains only chlorine and silicon. Now, do you remember what empirical formula means? An empirical formula shows the simplest ratio of the atoms of each element present in the compound. Now, when given that a chloride of silicon contains 79.1% of chlorine, what does it mean? Now suppose our sample is 100 grams. Now within this 100 grams, 79.1 grams of it is due to chlorine and the remaining 20.9 grams is due to silicon. Let's put the masses in a table form to facilitate our calculations. Now can we just take the ratio of the masses to derive the empirical formula? The answer is no. Since a mole of chlorine and a mole of silicon has got different masses, their masses 79.1 grams and 20.9 grams do not tell us the amount of chlorine and silicon atoms that are present in the compound. To compare the amount of chlorine and silicon present, we will need to convert the mass into moles. We can do this by dividing the mass by the molar mass. The molar mass of chlorine is 35.5 and the molar mass of silicon is 28.1. Now I will divide the masses by the respective molar mass, and this will give me 2.23 moles of chlorine and 0.744 moles of silicon. Now, do we already have the empirical formula? Now the relative number of moles are in decimal places. Now this will not give us a very neat empirical formula, would we? Now let's find the relative number of moles of chlorine and silicon by dividing throughout by the smallest number, which is 0.744. The relative number of moles of chlorine to silicon is 3:1. That means chlorine and silicon exist in a 3:1 ratio, which is also to say the empirical formula is SiCl3. Let's move on now to part B. In part B, we are asked to find the molecular formula given the molar mass of 269 grams per mole. Now if you recall, the molecular formula specifies the actual number of the atoms of each element present in the compound. Now the molecular formula is a multiple of the empirical formula. Let's say our molecular formula is SiCl3 bracket N. Now how do we find the molar mass of this compound with molecular formula SiCl3N? To do so, we will first start off with summing up the molar mass of the atoms within the brackets. There is 1 silicon and 3 chlorine, so that is 28.1 plus 3 times 35.5. And this whole sum multiply by N. This will give us 134.6 N, which is equal to the 269 grams per mole given in the question. This will allow us to find the value of N, which is 1.999. Now 1.999 isn't a very neat answer, is it? N should be an integer. So N is actually approximately equal to 2. This will give us the molecular formula of SiCl3, 2, which is also Si2Cl6.